Today, we are talking about the 3 pillars of front to back depth. I am so excited to share this information and this knowledge with y'all. I also have some news that I want to share before we get into this video, guys. I have been trying to figure out what I'm going to do with the YouTube membership, and I have been battling with it for a month or so, and I have come to the conclusion that I'm going to make everything free. All of the videos that I currently have on my YouTube membership, I am going to re-edit them and upload them on the normal channel so everybody can watch it for free. Right now, I don't want to put a paywall behind the information and the knowledge that I'm sharing with you guys. My only ask is if you feel like this information is helpful and valuable to you, the YouTube membership will be a way for people who want to financially support the channel to support the channel if they want to. Now, it ranges from $10 to $500. I know that's a gap, but this information is worth more than $500 a month, because if you learn and apply this information, you'll be able to make more than $500 a month off of this information. But this is not required. You could just watch the videos and that's fine as well. The only thing that's going to be on the YouTube membership that is not going to be on the main channel are the live mixes, but everything else, all the other videos, they're going to be on the main channel. Even the super in-depth stuff that I was doing and going to do more of on the YouTube membership, I'm just going to do it on the main channel so everybody can have it, everybody can see it. I just want to do that for you guys. So without further ado, let's get into the video. The 3 pillars of front to back depth. Let's get to it. Front to back depth. I'm gonna give you the bottom line up front. I'm gonna use an extreme example. Say, for example, you hear someone in your ear. Let me go to the mic. I'm in your ear right now, speaking to you. What do you hear? The details in my voice. You hear more diction, more sibilance, more low end, more presence. You can hear if I decide to get really loud. You hear that immediately. You can easily hear the dynamics. You can easily hear the volume changes. You can easily hear how I emphasize certain words versus when I bag up all the way over here away from the mic. What differences do you hear? The low end in my voice has decreased. Maybe some of the top end has decreased. Maybe some of the transient information isn't as clear and it's not being picked up as precisely as before. This is an example with a microphone, but it works quite similarly with our ears in nature. So if someone is in your ear talking to you and you hear all of these details versus someone who is way outside around the corner, what things do you hear differently? When you're mixing and you're trying to create front to back depth, just use what you have already heard in nature as a reference point. Because if something is further away from you, certain frequencies are not getting to you because they're not as close. They're dispersing, they're being absorbed, they're getting stopped by obstacles. The sound may be a little more blurry, a little less clear, a little less direct. You may hear more of the room tone, more of the room sound attached to this sound when it arrives to you. Things like that. That's the bottom line. I'm going to show you examples in this video, but if you just think that way when you're mixing and you're trying to create depth in your mix, that'll be a great starting point and a great mental reference for how to achieve it. But also when we're talking about basically loudness versus softness or lower versus louder, it's not only overall volume louder, it's less dynamic. So the lead vocal can be a little more expressively dynamic, whereas this ad-lib is going to have a smaller dynamic range. We're going to keep it tucked in this little cave back there. We're not going to let it spring out to the front. We're going to keep it tucked in the back. That's how I like to think of it. I like to put things in their little caves as far as in the back, like, oh, you're in your cave over there, you're in your cave right here, behind the vocal that's out here in front, close to me, center stage. Or I think of it as this person is maybe 5 steps behind the lead vocalist, and this person is 10 steps behind, and that person is 25 steps behind, or this sound is 20, whatever. So with keeping something in its little cave, I'm going to use compression. So we're talking about overall of the sound. If we just listen to this, and let's take off some of these. Let me show you a little bit of a before and after. So we got some effects on here, so we'll take that off. This is going to this ad-lib bus, so we'll mute all of that and we'll mute some of these effects. Now you see that's pretty loud. Let's loop maybe right here. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. So it's still lower, and that's a good start. And it's still not super dynamic, but when you hear that oh, like the end of the O, it's kind of ramping up a little bit in volume. I'll just be a hoe. It's kind of peaking up a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to relax that a little bit. I'm going to compress it. I'll just be a hoe. That's a little bit of compression there first. And I'm gonna come with the CLA 76. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want. Actually gives me a little bit of volume right there. And then we got a limiter. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from. This is a decent amount of limiting here, but it doesn't matter. I don't care about the numbers. I don't care about the meters. I care about what it sounds like. So I'm limiting to keep it down there and let that vocal be dynamic, detailed, all of that. Let it move around how it desires to. And then I'm tucking things into their cave. So I'm using some dynamic control to do that. That's the second step. I'll just be a hoe. I don't. So we take this stuff off. I'll just be a hoe. Back on. I'll just be a hoe. There we go. It's kind of sitting back a little bit, right? The second part of that, controlling its dynamics, is controlling frequency-wise what the frequencies are doing. If something is further away from me, I'm normally not hearing the details of its frequencies being dynamic. You know how in a lead vocal, sometimes you have what people will say, well, what is maybe a overly resonant frequency or a resonant frequency that's a little too loud, and you hear it going up and down, especially in something like the lows or the low mids of a vocal. And maybe that's where you want to use some dynamic EQ or some multiband compression on that frequency range. The same thing happens maybe with these ad-libs, and it's frequencies that are a little overly dynamic, and it's coming too forward and then coming back and coming forward and coming back, and I just want it to stay in its cave. So I'm using multiband compression in this case to keep those frequencies, or to make those frequencies a little less dynamic. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. See, it's not doing too much. It's really only in these areas. And also, we're going to get to it when we're talking about EQ, but it's the upper mid-range and the top end that I'm also using this to darken it just a tad, just to really sit it behind that lead vocal. So I'm relaxing those frequency ranges that are doing a little bit too much on the top, and I am keeping it dynamically controlled to sit it in its cave in the back. Next thing, now this is very important, the transients, the diction, the clarity of which something, a vocal or an instrument, which we hear it. If something is closer to us, we hear that diction, that detail, the transients, the timbre. We hear that so much more clearly. And if something needs to be behind something else, we want to lessen that energy, basically. We want to relax a lot of that energy. So I'm using the C4 to do that as well. I'm using the 1176, the CLA 76, because it's pretty fast, our compressor standard. But I'm making sure that when I mix the vocal, I'm enhancing, I'm bringing out that detail, I'm bringing out that diction, that presence. I'm bringing those things out. But a lot of times you don't even have to do too much with the backgrounds, because I've already enhanced the lead vocal and brought that stuff out to where on the ad-libs and background vocals, in comparison to that lead, it's not as detailed already. So I just have to relax just a little bit and things fall into place. So that's all I've done here, but I'm making sure if we play some more ad-libs, let's listen to this whole hook. And if we're listening to the detail and the diction of the lead vocal versus the detail and the diction of the ad-libs, let's see if we hear that difference. So I'm going to take off all of these effects for all of these ad-libs because we're going to get there too. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. Can't end up just fucking you. I'll just be a hoe. I won't never say I do. I'll just be a hoe. I'll just be a hoe. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. Okay, this is a good example right here. This I'll just be a hoe right here. Just be a hoe. So yeah, that I'll just be, the S and the J is not super loud. I've done some de-essing. I didn't even really remember that I did this, but I've taken that down. So if I kept this, I'll just be a hoe, that's making it come to the front a lot more than what it needs to in relation to that lead vocal. So I've relaxed the J and the S in this situation so that it stays tucked in the back. I'll just be a hoe from you. I'll just be a hoe. See, that kind of makes it come a little bit more to the front. We're so good at picking up English language. If I just hear that J and the S, I know what he's saying. and I know it's come up to the front because of how our ears work. It's like when you read something and maybe all the letters aren't there, but because we know English, we can make out the word. We do the same thing when we're hearing. This happens to me all the time. I'll be talking to somebody on the phone and the phone is breaking up, and I don't hear everything they say because the phone is breaking up, but I understood what they said because I just know English. You know what I'm saying? I know what they're saying. That's what happens in music as well. So I'm using this to really relax it and sit it in the back, because when it's up, even though the tonal volume of these words are lower, that S and that J, when it's louder, we can still make out what he's saying and it sounds like he's in the front. I'll do that one more time. So here's with it not de-essed technically. And then here's with it de-essed. Just a little more tucked in the back, and we'll play this part too. I'll just be a hoe. I will never say I do. So let's see what this sounds like. I'll just be a hoe. I will never. A little bit. This one is more subtle than the other one, but a little bit still. I'll just be a hoe. I will never say I. Because to me, when this is de-essed, it stays tucked in the back and then it starts peaking up a little bit right here. But when it's not there, it seems a little bit louder to me. I'll just be a hoe. I will never. It doesn't sneak in as much to me. Just that move to me changes how that feels. Okay. EQ, a super major one, very important. So tonally, what do things sound like when they are far away versus something that's close to me? Obviously, in my brain, something that's close to me is going to have all the frequencies we could possibly hear. If something is close to me, it's going to be full range. I'm hearing all of it. So in this lead vocal, I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. Now in this case, obviously I'm not making it so this vocal is right in your ear, but just comparatively speaking, this lead vocal is going to be more full range than whatever I'm putting behind it. So I am going to come here on the Renaissance EQ, which is what I've used. I've rolled off some low end and some top end. This is before, let's A-B this real quick. This high pass and low pass. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want. Not a major difference, but it's made it smaller already because we've turned it down. We've used some compression, a little bit of multiband compression. We've dynamically made it smaller, but frequency representation wise, we've made it just a little bit smaller. I'll A-B that one more time. Really listen to the low end. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want. Really chopping off that unnecessary low end for this ad-lib. And then we coming in with this. I'm turning down some 1.7K, 1735, 3 dB, 265, half a dB. So I'm turning down some of the frequencies that we hear kind of the loudest in vocals. And then we're relaxing some of the top end a little bit as well at 30K. So I'll A-B that. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. I don't. So that's taking a lot of that energy and really sitting behind the lead vocal to let the lead vocal shine and have all of that information, all of that detail, that clarity. Because what frequencies are going to reach you? If something is far away from you, there are certain frequencies that will reach you and certain frequencies that will be absorbed, diffused. So I am looking for those frequency ranges that are a little too prominent to me in this ad-lib, and I'm just turning those down. That's it. We're going to talk about this in character and texture as well, but this is also a little bit of EQ, because to me, when you 0.1 on the lo-fi, it kind of does something to the top end and darkens it and makes it a little grainy as well. So I'm using this for some EQ as well, but also some character. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no. We briefly talked about presence right here, but I want to go into that a little bit more because I'm basically using, these are my 3 EQ type situations for this ad lib. I'm high passing and low passing, and then I'm using the multiband compressor to relax that frequency range. This is somewhere between 530 and 2875. So this range right here is getting relaxed and this top end is getting relaxed. So I'm making sure that this ad lib is not too present in relation to that lead vocal. If it's further away, I'm hearing less detail. And where do we usually hear that presence, that detail, that clarity? In this frequency range up here. So I'm making sure that I'm relaxing a decent amount of that in this ad lib so I get that depth. Character and texture. So part of that character and texture is this lo-fi. It's giving me a little bit of character and texture, some subtle extra harmonics, but what I'm really be getting a little bit of character and texture for, I'm using multiple effects to get multiple effects. That's crazy. I'm using one tool to do multiple things, basically. The same way I'm using this C4 to relax the dynamic frequency range, I'm also doing it to relax the presence. And I'm using this flanger, this deverb, and this mod delay to create character and texture. And in this case, I'm using this EQ to do the same thing. So we'll loop the same spot. It's really this deverb and this flanger that I'm using to create character and texture on this sound. So let's play it without and then we'll play it with.
I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from.
And just so to make sure y'all hear that, I'm gonna solo this real quick. Right now, it's very clean. When I put this is a mono deverb, by the way. It gives it some grit, some dirtiness, some crappiness. Like it's got a little bit of rooms on it and it's in the back of a room somewhere. And then we got the air flanger. And that gives me a texture too. You hear it like wobbling. You just hear it flanging. I'll A-B that. It's wobbling, it's getting unclear in a way. We're gonna get into why I'm using this flanger as well. I'll just A-B the mod delay for you real quick. And then we'll go here to this part. We'll do this one because I just want y'all to hear the same thing over and over. Now this one is stereo, just creative choice right here. Again, these are creative choices, but it's for that separation. Again, more creative choices. The feedback is just longer on the right than it is on the left, but just trying to give it just something. Make it feel like something. Give it a character, give it a personality, give it a vibe, give it a texture. And then we'll do this last one with just the flanger on it.
I'll just be a hoe. I'll just be a hoe.
It's a little bit of vibe, a little bit of texture. We can go even more extreme with this. Sometimes I'll put the decapitator on it, or a lot of times for background vocals, I like using the Fairchild to give me some extra character and saturation because it just has a sound. So I'll use that as well for character and texture. In this case, for these ad libs, I didn't go too crazy with that because I guess I just didn't need to, but that's something I'll do as well. I'll use anything, man, like any type of plug-in that gives you some extra harmonics, some saturation, some distortion, some coloration. I'll try that on something that I want to put in the back along with all of these other techniques and see if that helps give me a little bit more of distinctive separation between something. Because if I have a lead vocal that's super clean and I have an ad lib that's super dirty, there's a sonic difference between both of those and it helps me to place it in a different pocket versus the lead. All right, we made it through EQ. Last one is effects. Now this is the one that everybody talks about, but to me it's very important, don't get me wrong, but I think getting your volume right and your dynamics right and then getting your EQ right is very powerful. And once you start doing those, the effects are kind of easy. So what I'm gonna do with the effects now, I'm gonna bypass these air flangers and we'll go back here and we'll loop this again because I do want to communicate, because I'll do this a lot on background vocals as well. I'll use a flanger or a chorus or some kind of modulation effect to blur the sound a little bit, because if something is coming straight at you, it's very direct. It's not moving around, it's not shaking, it's not blurry, it's direct clearly. But if I add a slight flange or a slight modulation to something, it gives it a wobble and it's not as concise, it's a little bit blurry. And so I like to use that slightly to help create a sense of depth in comparison to, say, a lead vocal in this case. So I'll A/B that. I'll solo this so we can hear that lead vocal again. So this is going to be before.
I don't want no, I don't want no, I don't want no.
It's very subtle, but works wonders. And then we have this same situation right here.
I'll just be a hoe. Can't 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 I'll just be a hoe.
And it also creates a separation. It's like you can hear it a little more clearly now, but it's like blurry in the back in a weird way. I do it with the air flanger. I use the meta flanger to do it as well. I think I used the meta flanger on some of these and right here as well. So that's one effect. And then we'll use some delay and some reverb. I like to start with the delay. So we'll loop from right here.
Oh, I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from you.
What really makes it seem like it's depth is the extra delay after the O. It's the delay after the O that is in the back that makes it feel like, oh, that came from the back. So I'll A/B that one more time.
Oh, I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from.
But also I will say I'm putting this directly on the lead vocal, and when you turn the mix up on it, it's doing a wet blend. So the volume is getting lower and the dry volume of that ad-lib is turning down and the delay is turning up. So I like doing this directly on sounds in these cases because it helps me to sit things in the back a lot easier. To me, this also blurs the sound in a way. It sounds different than just turning the volume down. Same thing with the reverb. It sounds different than just turning the volume down on this vocal. It sits it inside of the reverb or the delay in a way that seems like it's back there. So I'm using this intentionally, thinking in that way as well. We'll do that delay, and then I'm using a doubler. The doubler helps as well.
Oh, I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. I don't.
The doubler helps as well because it's just giving me a little bit of reflections. It's like the beginning of my actual reflections of this sound. There are some reflections in this deverb as well, but I'm using this as some extra reflections of this sound to create a little bit of depth. Like when this ad-lib says oh, it's reflecting off of the walls of the space, the walls of its cave basically, and I'm hearing that it's in a space over there in that specific spot because of those reflections. So let's get into reverb, right? In this reverb, we cannot control our early reflections, but it's okay. I'm using the pre-delay at 0 right here. I have the pre-delay at 0 because if I were to move the pre-delay back, that would make that ad-lib seem like it's more forward. So I like to oftentimes keep that pre-delay at 0 for things that I want to sit in the back. It just depends. If I'm sitting a lot of stuff though, then I'll adjust the pre-delay. But in this case, it being at 0 is fine because I want it to be in the back and it's not competing with a whole lot of things. I'm not doing like 50 levels front to back. I can use this reverb to cloudy up the detail and the transient of this ad-lib that will help me sit it in the back, and that will help me attach a room sound to this ad-lib in comparison to the lead vocal. So let's A/B that one more time. Before.
Oh, I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no.
Very subtle, but it's just sitting it in the back. Let's A/B this next one too.
Oh, I'll just be a hoe. I'll just be a hoe. I'll just be a hoe. I'll just.
See how it just sits in the back? Now I am getting a volume difference because I'm using the dry wet on this plugin, so it's turning it down, but there's a little bit of space that is adding to it. And then we're gonna add some more reverb to it. So I have a room, a plate, and a hall. These are actually just settings from my recording template that I did not change. So the room is just this with the top end turned down a little bit. Valhalla Supermassive, mix 100% with, this is the delay. It's a weird kind of plug-in, but it's just a little room sound. We'll turn that up and I'll let y'all hear what that sounds like. This is a preset in Valhalla Supermassive. I've just adjusted things probably a little bit.
I'll just be
That's all that sounds like. But that's a little bit of a space on that ad-lib as well. So let's A-B that.
I'll just be
Very subtle, but it sounds like it gets a little bit lower still. Just when I do that, it gets a little bit lower, a little more blurry. I'll A-B that one more time.
I'll just be
Just ever so slightly. It's just a little bit more blurry, a little bit more tucked. The lead vocal comes forward a little bit more in comparison to that ad-lib, or that ad-lib sits back a little bit more in comparison to the lead vocal. And then we add this plate, which is Reverb plate 1. We got the pre-delay at 80 here, which is interesting. Decay time 1.9. But yet again, this is a situation where it don't matter that much. But these are the early reflections. So this is where the early reflections are. They're a negative 2 dB, which I think is the standard. I don't even think I've changed anything else on here. And then there's some EQ rolling off some top end, some low end. And then there's the R channel rolling off a little bit more low end, just ducking that stuff, rolling off some top end. Just wanting to keep that dark, but let's A-B that.
I'll just be 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 I'll just
a little bit, nothing crazy. And then here we got the Hall. True Verb on the Hall, again, some more early reflections. Decay time 2.4. The pre-delay is very crazy on this. We be obsessing over all the pre-delay, and it does matter. Don't get me wrong, I'm lying to you. It does matter. It's very important. But if you can get your volume situated, your dynamic situated, your EQ situated, you can like blemish and create the sound in the space of the room with your effects. I had this room, plate, and hall. You see the pre-delay is getting longer with each one. I'm using that, yes, to create some depth in my room, in the space, in the cave that I'm sitting it in, but I'm not super focused on that. Let's just bring up the reverb plugins in general. Let's bring up Reverb, True Verb, H. Oh, wait. Bring up this. So there's these early reflections in all of these, and then I do have a reverb on the ad-libs, but there's a shorter pre-delay here. So this is very short because it's like a quick room sound for real that's on the vocal. And then this one is 1.9 seconds as far as the decay time, but the pre-delay is at 80. And then this is 2.4 as far as the decay time, but the pre-delay is 139.5. Pretty long pre-delay. But how I'm blending these in and making them work together, I'm creating a depth of field with the reverbs and having them work in color together. I'm not really paying attention super heavily to like, oh, I need this amount of early reflections, or oh, I need this amount of late reflections, or oh, the pre-delay needs to be super tight or whatever. Like, it's all a feel thing and what feels right and what makes it sit back in the mix. I'm definitely one of those, I hear a sound in my head and I just do what makes that sound come out the speakers. That's it. I am nerdy and I do get into these things, and I do know that, oh, making the pre-delay longer makes it sound more forward. Making the pre-delay shorter makes it sound like it's more in the back. You feel me? And I've used that intentionally already. But in this case, with these blemishes of these extra reverbs, I'm just trying to color the sound of the room. When a sound is further away from you and it's coming to you, oftentimes you hear more of the room tone, versus if something is in your face, you normally hear less of the room tone. You'll hear the reflections, but you'll hear less of the room tone attached to that vocal. But if it's further away, you'll hear more of the room tone attached to that vocal. It comes with the vocal. So that's more what I'm trying to do with these effects. Let's just solo that ad-lib. That's what it's like right there. Let's take off some of these delays. If I even mute this, that's kind of creativity too right there. That's more of what I'm going for real. So this is kind of the creative one right here. It's darker. It's still present because I want you to feel that energy, but it's just got that reverb lingering on it. And then we use this and this mod delay for a little extra character, texture, and creativity. And now it's a whole thing, a whole event.
I'll just be a.
And you just hear it in the back. So let's play all three of these.
I'll just be a. I'll just be a hoe. I don't want no love from you. I'll just be a hoe. Can't end up just fucking you. I'll just be a hoe. I won't never say I do. I'll just be a hoe. I'll just be a hoe. I'll just be a hoe.
Simple. Just for the nerdy people, I do want to give y'all the chance to nerd out. So if you do want to focus on, you know, the decay time and the pre-delay and the early reflections, if you click this, we can do that. If the pre-delay is shorter, the sound is further back. If the pre-delay is further away, it makes it sound like, in this case, the vocal is closer to you. If the decay time is longer, that makes it seem like that thing is further away from you. If the decay time is shorter, it seems like it's a little closer. The early reflections, let's use this. Let's use our verb for early reflections. So if the early reflections are off or low, that vocal will be more forward. If the early reflections are higher, that vocal will be set back a little bit. And same thing like we just talked about for the pre-delay. I also like to use reverbs for coloration because you can use reverbs as EQ, but they create a certain texture. They attach themselves to the sound. So automatically it colors the sound, and you can use the color of a reverb to help you set something back in the mix as well, like a darker reverb, or maybe saturated or distorted a little bit to give it a little more character. And now that character kind of attaches and blends with that thing you're trying to sit in the back, and it can help you do that. It can help you adjust the color of a sound. Well guys, I think that is it. That is how you do it. So overall, the three pillars: volume, EQ, and effects. So without the further ado, if this video was helpful or valuable to you, consider joining the YouTube membership to just help support this channel. But if not, it's all good. It's not required, but it's appreciated. And I'm gonna have another video for y'all next week. If you're liking the vibe, like and subscribe. We out this thing.